Typically with real estate, one of the beauties of it is you have three ways of making money, right? And that's the absolute beauty. You have appreciation, you have income, and you have depreciation.
From cornfields to high rises, office to industrial, houses to hotels, and every other asset class in real estate, we cover the people, the projects, and the profit. Welcome to the Investing in Iowa show. This show is for go-doers, action takers, and business owners. It's for people like you who are sick of Uncle Sam taking a huge bite of your apple. If you're looking to get ahead of what's taking place in Iowa, learn who is doing what, and how you can get in on the action, you're in the right place. Hosted by Neil Timmins, an Iowa native who has been involved in over $300 million in real estate right here in Iowa. Recording in studio from West Des Moines. Here's your host, Neil Timmins.
I've got Todd Millang here on the show. Todd, welcome.
Thank you.
Excited you're here. Say, for the audience to say, who are you? Where are you from? What do you do?
Yeah. Todd Millang, commercial real estate investor, developer, broker from Huxley, Iowa. Went to UNI and been in Des Moines for too many years now.
UNI, what'd you study?
Fun. I went up there, studied business. I took a class, Mark Wininger, great appraiser broker in Waterloo, was the adjunct professor for intro to real estate. And by class number 3, I'm like, I want to be like Mark. And so I was sort of pot committed right away in that. Later that semester, I attended my first Rho Epsilon, which is the real estate club meeting at the end of the semester. It was me and 3 other people, the outgoing president, the guy that wanted to be president, and the outgoing secretary. And they didn't cover much other than the one guy wanted to have a vote so he could become president. And so we did. All 4 of us voted, and he won. And so he was president. I was vice president. 20 minutes into my first Rho Epsilon meeting, I was vice president. And that was the last time he ever attended a meeting. So next semester.
You had no idea how good you were.
I was de facto president. I ran the Rho Epsilon Club for a couple of years, and really helped me open up a lot of doors to a tremendous amount of incredible real estate professionals across the state and even across the Midwest that we had come and speak to us. So it was fun.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So you graduated, then where'd you go?
Had offers from like groups like Principal, who hire a lot of real estate people out of Des Moines or out of UNI. Aegon had some offers, and one in Denver, Kansas City, Chicago. But I was like, I want to be a commercial broker, and I want to do it in Des Moines, Iowa. Even though I grew up in Huxley, not very far away, came down here. Faisal Saeed was our managing director at the time, and CB had just formed their partner program with Hubble Realty. And so, I was learning about CB, and then, I came down and showed up for my first day of work. Went up to the receptionist and was like, hey, my name is Todd. I'm here to see Faisal. And she's like, Faisal's in South Africa for the next 2 weeks. He forgot to tell me that he was going on vacation. So, but that was, way too 27 years ago, 28 years ago now.
Yeah.
And I've been with CBRE Hubble that entire time, and CBRE just broke away from Hubble just a year or so.
Why brokerage? You got jobs with some guaranteed money.
That's always interesting, and it's I've watched it because we've hired a lot of young people coming out of UNI, Iowa State. There's, I'm air quoting, there's some sexiness to brokerage, which is not the case. But as a college student, you sort of see it. And you're like, and I just sort of wanted to pave my own way, I guess. I don't know. I was like, I was going to be like Mark Wininger, and so it always sort of resonated with me. I second guessed that pretty hard the first 3-4 years when I was making no money, and my buddies were flying to New York and Texas on principle to go look at $10 million deals. And, I'm trying to do a tattoo parlor up in the north side of Des Moines, type of work, but, eventually paid off. So
eventually paid off. Walk me through those first few years, and then what separates you, that eventual payoff, from, who never actually ended up getting it.
I use the scenario that brokerage, like so many things in life and so many businesses, is you're starting at point A and you're going to point B. And there are some people that are going to take a Corvette in a straight line from A to B, right? And in their mind, that was, they were a success on that. There's other people that are going to jump in a Jeep with the top off and twirl around and take their sweet time and eventually get to B. Both of them are fine. It's just how and what. And, there's an aspect of where, like, again, we've hired a tremendous amount of young people over the course of time. And you look and you're like, oh, I think this person has it, this person doesn't. And it's always surprising. There's some people that just keep their head down and do what they're supposed to do and learn it and and evolve and grow and are incredible at it. Again, there's plenty of brokers here in town that you'd be like, we're a successful broker, or why is this person not a successful broker?
Right.
And it's running your own business. I mean, we're independent contractors. My first 5 years, I don't know if I made collectively $100,000.
Wow.
It was tough. And I was working hard and things were going well. Just, a few deals didn't always pan out and whatnot. And then, starting around 2002, 2003, things started really clicking for me. And we started picking up some new assignments. For a while early on, I was working with Colleen Johnson, who's an amazing person and had a long history in the commercial real estate markets. We eventually, she just retired a few years ago, still a close friend. Her and I secured the Davis Estates ground next to the new mall back in 2005. And we worked on a lot of stuff like that together, but, just kept on growing. One of my early clients was Come and Go convenience stores back when Bill Krause owned it. Neil Broderick, who had usually a long time prior had worked at Hubbard Realty. Someone had made an introduction. I went to lunch with Neil and Neil said, hey, we're looking for some help on identifying a couple sites here in the market. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'll go do that. And I was working hard on that. That was a relationship that still exists today with, when Kyle took over the company, we've had a great relationship with them, helping them with all facets of commercial real estate, for 25 plus years. That's always fun. I love a great story back from when we were doing work. And I don't know if you ever knew Bill Krause, but him and Kyle, just amazing leaders, amazing community activists, and have done so much for our community. But I was 2 years in the business. I didn't know anything from anything. We're working on trying to get this property bought in Drake, right by Drake, and I come in and Bill would stand up at his little podium next to his desk, and you would sit in a chair across from him that was a little bit lower than usual. And he stood up when I was pounding this podium, and he was pretty fired up. And, after a 5-10 minute one-sided conversation, Neil Broderick interjects. He's like, Bill, Todd's on our side. He's representing us. Well, why does someone stop me and tell me? But, that relationship, looking back, I would say most of the market knows I've given a tremendous amount of credit. They've been just an amazing client that we've had a great run with. Yeah, but, we've been doing, for a handful of years. I was representing Wells Fargo Financial and Wells Fargo Home Mortgage across the country. We were doing, 200 or 300 of these little mortgage and financial stores all over. There was literally 1,500 of them, and we were working on a lot. And that was really transactional management stuff. And then we were assisting them with not only their stuff here in Iowa and Des Moines, but large back office deals across the country. And that was, just such an education, and more of the corporate services role, which, you ask, why'd you like brokerage? It's because I realized that I wasn't a great corporate services guy. But we did that for a long time. And, we did a lot with Maytag, and I was working a lot in Newton because there was no opportunities there.
Sure.
So that's where I got hooked up with Maytag. We ended up doing a lot of work for Maytag, even across the country. We were doing a lot of work in Ames. My parents, growing up in Hudson, my parents worked in Ames. So I knew Ames, and I'd go up there and do some work. And Brent Haverkamp, we've done a lot of work with him back in the day. And, that was always a wonderful relationship, and just kept on evolving and growing. And, if you go to a market like Chicago, I remember there was a broker there that we were working on some assignment on. He was representing a client of ours, and all he did was tenant rep work in a 4-block square in downtown Chicago. Yeah. He didn't represent landlords. He didn't do anything but office tenant rep work in this defined, he didn't go across the street to some properties, right? I mean, this is what he did. I'm like, oh, wow. And he had great success at a young age and was doing well. And him and I would love just talking, because I was a master of none, doing a little bit of everything, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I was literally doing retail, office, industrial, apartments, land. I mean, and then my market was undefined. I was literally doing work across the country.
Yeah.
And so again, there's two routes, right?
You're totally right. That would be very different to work in that restrictive of a capacity.
Yeah. And again, I think he's a vice chairman now. I mean, I still sort of track what he's doing. And again, it's for me, there's no question I'd probably have some form of ADD or even worse. Boy, I think that'd be tough for me. And then, moving forward, my other outside of brokerage, it's the same thing. I have a lot of respect for the people that really dive in and understand distinct, specific market or industry that they practice in. And they're the best. They're the experts. They're the go-to. There's nobody else, right? I envy that. I'm on the other end of the side. But I've always looked at it as I'm good with partnering with guys like that.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. So, I mean, tremendous success in brokerage. Obviously, the money's got to go to work someplace. And so you put some money to work sooner or later in real estate.
Yeah. So I like to use the scenario of my 3 buckets, which too many people will laugh because they've heard me use this analogy a lot. But, there's always been the bucket that is both time commitment as well as income back out, right? Brokerage is where it started. And then a long, long time ago, myself and a good buddy of mine, we bought a little house in Clive, Iowa through bankruptcy. We raised $20,000 or $25,000 from friends and family. Everybody put in $5,000. We renovated it, and he now owns, but was running a flooring store. So getting flooring at cost. His dad and brother were coming down doing construction. We were there working every night, every weekend, doing all this stuff. And we flipped it a number of months later. And we were pretty proud because we made a 20% return. And, we gave all those people $6,000 back rather than their $5,000. And we took a little bit more. But you look back and like, oh my gosh, we were working for pennies then. Yeah, right. But it was just a great first experience into what was eventually my second bucket, and that's my real estate portfolio. And it's obviously grown since then. So originally it was just one bucket, and it was the biggest, and then added the second bucket. And then after I was having some success in brokerage, I always thought growing up that I would become Sam from the sitcom Cheers, right? Yeah. I never bartended ever in my life. I was putting a deal together. There was an old Pancheros up on Welch Avenue. Honey Anderson called and he wanted me, and I was doing a lot of names. And I'm like, yeah, I can find you a tenant for that. And literally, I'm like, I call Steve McFadden, who I helped finish up. And I know, there's that aspect, but he had the Mickey's Irish Pub in Clive. And I'd helped him finish up that lease, taking over for another broker that was leaving the market when I got into it. So I got to know him, and we, long story short, we partnered and did Mickey's Irish Pub in Ames, Iowa on Welch Avenue. Yeah. And that was my first investment. And I had to, scramble to get a few dollars together to be, probably a 25% owner or something. It was a great success. They did well. Even I didn't look at business the same route. And so eventually we parted ways there. That was my first foray into anything else. I shouldn't say that. UNI. I loved UNI. It's an amazing college. I always loved it because you could meet someone new every day, but you could run into 20 of your friends. Yeah. It was that perfect size for me. Yeah. Iowa State too big, Simpson or something like that, a little too small. But I had to work. I've been absolutely blessed and so fortunate with an amazing upbringing. 2 of the most amazing parents ever. I have an older brother, younger sister, but we worked our entire lives. I mean, we don't remember not working. I remember putting a block on my shoe and a weight on the seat of a John Deere tractor to mow lawns because I wasn't heavy enough and couldn't reach the pedal. But we worked, and so I worked all through high school, all through, in college I had to work as well. And I was working at UPS, and then I spent a weekend down in Iowa City and had too many gyros, too late in the evening or early in the morning, whatever you want to say. And so I had this wild idea that we need something like this up at UNI and started looking into it. And fast forward a number of months later, my dad and I built a gyro stand out of stuff he found, these handy scraps. And literally the main foundation of it, we took an old crappy trailer, and then we found an old steel barrel that he had cut and made into a grill. And that was our basis, and then, it was amazing. Yeah. Got the permits, got the licenses. Martin Brothers was my vendor, that I would go pick up gyro meat and tomatoes and tzatziki sauce and everything else for. I had all this set up at the house that we were living in. We lived in the house up at UNI called the Purple House. We had a garage there that I had to pay rent on because it was full of all my gyro stuff in the gyro stand. But I started a gyro stand. It did real well for a couple years. And then I ended up selling to the business club up there when I graduated. But I quickly realized that, me being the extrovert that I am, that I enjoyed working the stand the first couple times, but then I'm like, I'd rather be out at the bars with my buddies. Yeah. So I found a handful of friends and other people that would work. And so after, a month or two, I'd set it up for 3 nights a week maybe, and these people would work it. I'd come out of, one of the establishments up there at midnight or sometime, and I was like the Pied Piper because my buddies knew there I was going to go bunch in front of the line and get some gyros to walk home with. But so that was sort of my first foray into some of that stuff. But then, so I was partners in Mickey's Irish Pub, parted ways there. And Hubble Realty, who I'd, again, super associated with for a long time, had bought Johnny's Hall of Fame from John Ulrich, and they were remodeling that and remodeling apartments above. And it was a commercial condo unit. So they originally approached me saying, hey, we'd love to have you come in and help us operate this spot with your knowledge of, well, I don't know if I would say I had a lot of knowledge, but more than you.
Of your knowledge of partnering with somebody else. Yeah.
And so long story short, I'm like, I don't want to do that. I've been working too hard to build a reputation as a broker in town, not as a bar owner, but we figured it out that I was able to be not just an investor. I was the operating majority partner of both the real estate and the business. Hired a couple of good people, did a lot of research, and we delivered something that is fairly consistent with what you still see today. And that was in 2006, 2007. We opened as the first bar in Iowa that didn't allow smoking. 6 months later, there was a nation or statewide smoking ban. But a sports bar in downtown Des Moines, Iowa, on Court Avenue, and you weren't allowed to smoke in there.
It seems so foreign today.
It seemed, and there was a lot of people that loved it, even smokers. But back then, it was just a hubbub. I mean, there was people like, really? I mean, you can't smoke in here. You were in a bar. But we've had an amazing run there for quite a while. There's no question that, people ask, and it sounds goofy to say it, but part of any aspect of my success in my career on that aspect of it has come with being associated with the right people, right partners, right associates. Michelle Drummer is my right hand. She worked for me for 19 years. I could literally not operate without her. Tyler Dingle, he took over my brokerage role and I thought I'm handing the team over to Tyler and he'll just keep maintaining it. He's really solid. He's really great. He can keep this going, and he's doubled, tripled it, but I can go on and on of all the different people, all the partners I've had. But sorry. So we opened Johnny's, and it's been great. So that was my third bucket, was operations. So my buckets, real estate, brokerage and management, real estate portfolio investments in real estate, and then operations. And, today we opened Roca 10 years ago down on Court Avenue. Shorty's is the spot there in that same building that we have. Still have Johnny's. I have Malo, the Mexican restaurant down at the old Des Moines Social Club. We've owned a handful of others over the years. Rendezvous Lounge out in Adel, Iowa, that everybody thought was killing it because they only went out there on Wednesdays on nice nights for bike night, bicycling. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, this place is packed. I'm like, yeah, we get this 12 times a year. It's the other 340 days that we worry about, and just a handful. We bought a vineyard a few years ago out in Walla Walla, Washington, that has an operational aspect to it. We're not a winery. I tell people I'm a farmer growing grapes, and we try to sell it to the wineries. So that's sort of that portfolio. So those three buckets have ebbed and flowed all the time on, again, spent up time into them and then what's coming out. Right? And so today, the real estate portfolio is probably 60-70% of what I do. And brokerage is in there. Again, I have a great team of people. My manager, Jimmy Owens at Johnny's Hall of Fame, I think has been with us for 15 years. Uh-huh. We've just had so many great team members. And so, the restaurants, I probably only spend maybe 10% of my time. Usually when we need to, it's because, it's a tough business. It's been great to me, but it's an incredibly difficult business.
It seems challenging, and certainly the hours, of course, are kind of traditional restaurant hours or non-traditional working hours for somebody.
Which, again, it's been great for me because I don't have keys. If I had to get into any of my restaurants, I'd have to call one of my managers or one of our guys to I can't get in there. Right. But yeah, I mean, how many times you wake up in the middle of the night and it's 3:00 and you're like, oh, our head bartender is probably just leaving Johnny's on a Saturday night. Right. Probably not at 3 a.m. And so it's, unique business. Again, I've had a love-hate relationship with it. I know a ton of great local restaurateurs. And I say this a lot, people are like, oh yeah, Todd, he owns Roca, he's a restaurant owner or restaurateur, right? And I'm like, I don't think that's not very nice to the people that actually know what they're doing. I'm an investor in restaurants. Let's call it what it is. But no, we've been able to figure it out. A lot of pride of ownership with their Roca. I love hearing from people. They love the ambiance, the staff, the drinks, the food. We've had just a great amount of people through there. Johnny's, again, it's a sports bar, but it's been sort of a mainstay. And like when I remember telling some of my people early on, I'm like, I want us to operate this like that we're going to be in business in 20 years. Like, I don't want to be a flash in the pan. I want to do what's right, go about it, not follow a lot of gimmicks, not be the most trendy, but provide service at a good price and, great location down there.
Hey, Iowa investors, this is Ava Baukamp, Chief of Staff at Legacy Impact Investors. Have you thought about adding real estate to your portfolio but don't have the time or desire to play landlord? At Legacy Impact Investors, we do the heavy lifting. Our team finds the deals, manages the properties, and handles all the day-to-day operations. Our select group of qualified investors co-invest with us, gaining ownership equity without opening a tenant email or responding to a maintenance call. They just share in the income, appreciation, and tax benefits. These opportunities aren't for everyone. They are for qualified, accredited investors only. If you want to learn more, please visit LegacyImpactInvestors.com to apply.
Talk to me about the real estate, the portfolio.
Yeah.
What I'm kind of curious. Is there a transaction or two, or an asset class or two that stick out in there?
Yeah. So again, going back, so much of my life is through relationships and partnerships with the right people. And going back, as I was doing work with Brent Haverkamp, him and I ended up doing a couple projects together. One of them we still own up in at DMAC in Ankeny, and it's been a great project. I over the course of my last 15, 20 years, the bulk of my portfolio has probably been apartments, but I've never managed really an apartment myself, except for we have this unique situation right now because I don't want to. That's not made for me. But I've found the right partners there that not only, do a great job of whether it's construction or acquisition, but management as well. So, and then I randomly met Brian Martin. He was looking for some office space in Cap Square or something. I forget exactly. And we got to know each other, and he's been amazing. I mean, a story that I don't know if he'll ever come in, but it was amazing. He worked for Harry Bookey for a while and helped really, when Harry ramped up from, I own a little bit of apartments across the country, to where he was, a national leader. And a lot of that was Brian Martin. A lot of that was, Brian was his number 2 guy doing that. And then Brian broke off. I started investing, probably the first time, $25,000, with him. And my only regret looking back is I wish I would have given him a lot more money when I did. But he built an amazing portfolio. I forget how many units. It's mind boggling. And did really well with them. We actually, a small group of us with him in the lead bought an apartment complex from BH Equities and sold it 5 years later for probably 2 or 3 times. And so just stuff, and I didn't always know exactly what Brian was doing, but, which I think made a good partner for him. Things were going great. And then last few years, I've been doing a lot with Nick Jensen with Caliber, Iowa, one of the most fantastic developers, builders in central Iowa these days. Just absolutely dialed in. When you talk about, he's an absolute expert. He knows the market, he knows land, he knows so many aspects of it, and is doing a really good job, and has built an amazing team. And now he's sort of fully integrated, purchased J Corp from his father. So construction management, design, they have one of the best property managers in the town, and they just go about it the right way. And so, that's been fun. We've been working on a handful of projects over the years. Steve Brewer has become a close friend, and I absolutely love farmland investment. And, Steve and I got to know each other. He went to UNI, and just a great leader in the commercial real estate markets. And what he's done with People's Company is astronomical. Yeah. Taking it to where, I'm more and more involved with those guys all the time. And, they're traveling all over the country, from Michigan to Florida, selling citrus orchards to cranberry bogs to vineyards out on the West Coast, just ranch ground all over, right? So he travels out to Walla Walla, where they have a fairly good size office. So that's who introduced me to his guy that
I was wondering
in a vineyard out there. And Steve has, I like to joke, it's not smart to be an investor in the wine world, right? And I just say, hey, I'm not as bad as Steve. So he has a full-fledged winery that's doing some super cool things and great wine, capital call vintners. It's just awesome. So we've had a lot of fun there, but Steve and I have got to really enjoy each other. I love what they're doing at People's Company. Love the team. Really, last couple of days, I had a 1031 exchange, and I identified 2 farms. I'm a return guy, and farms are not your, but I love it. And out of my 3 options, I identified 2 farms. And so I was literally out driving around in the Bronco yesterday morning, looking at a couple farms, right? But, I'm an investor. We had a organic 1,200 acre farm on the Missouri River and just outside of Pierre, South Dakota.
Sure.
For a number of years with a group of us. We just sold that. That was the 1031. We own a hog farm up in northeast Iowa. I joke with people, I'm going to put my LinkedIn description as hog farmer. I love this one. One of the prettiest farms you'll ever see in northeast Oregon is this amazing spot called Hot Lakes. And it's thermal springs all around it. But there's this small little mountains sort of surrounding this little farm, and which gives us the characteristics where we are growing organic carrot seed, not just carrots, organic carrots, but we're going it for the seeds. You have to buy a million bees every year to help with the cross-pollination and all that stuff. But, just a beautiful, neat, unique scenario. And you think of all the things going on out there that you could get yourself into. And I'm like, I have an organic carrot seed farm. Yeah. But so that's been an exciting evolution of my story, right? But, my portfolio, we own North Grand Mall in Ames, Iowa, a couple partners. We own the Confluence Brewing Company building down off Thomas Beck. That's a warehouse. Now we have an amazing brewery and that has a retail component in there, but it's a warehouse, right? A bunch of, again, over the years has been apartments, and that's ebbs and flows depending on who and what. Obviously the farms discussed, the stuff with Caliber, but just a hodgepodge of other things. This 1031 looking like we're going to buy a building and convert it into a medical office. So it's, again, master of none, just foolish enough to go out there and try my hand at whatever comes around.
You've done a ton of things over the years. You've been involved in this. Give me some of the lessons. Everything didn't go right all along.
Oh my goodness, right? I always tell, especially young brokers, like, you'll never learn more from when a deal blows up. And from an investor side aspect, I can tell you the two deals that I wish I didn't do. As an individual like myself, a independent contractor, all I have is my time and money, right?
Correct.
And so it's not always just how much money invested, it's the time. But, I can look back and, you learn, sometimes it's as basic as, hey, you didn't know enough going into it. Sometimes you just got sidetracked by something you didn't see. We own a mall in Ames. I told people we bought it really cheap. I'm like, wow, we'll never get hurt on this. 3 years later, the world shuts down, and we've got it back and it's doing great. But, you never see some of these other aspects. And then the partners, like one deal, I like all the partners. They were great. It was a good investment for me, but I was not aligned in the same mentality of the partners. And that makes it tough because you want to be fair. You want to make sure everybody is on the same page, and their approach to doing business was just different than ours. Theirs wasn't wrong. It's just different. But I sort of look more on my brokerage side of some of the deals that blew up, right? Why, how, what, learn from that, try to not duplicate it. Try to grow. And so, but over the course of, again, I like to think of myself as a young man. I have 2 5-year-old twin boys, Maddie and Wells, at home. And my wife, she doesn't want to hear that I've been doing this for as long as I have. Yeah, you sort of have to go about it as, I try to have balance. Sure. And it will be interesting because a lot of the people that work alongside me I'm like, oh, we've heard this from Todd so many times. So we know which direction he's going here. But, just that life balance. I run hard. I play hard. I work. I would say the majority of what helped me the most is associating myself with the right people and the right partners, but collaborating. Like I'm 100% that, hey, I'd rather have 10% of something and work in conjunction with others than that I need to be 100%. Yeah. I love learning from what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong. So
why do you go as hard as you do? What is this? It was clearly deeply ingrained in you.
Yeah, I don't know. Great. My parents and brother and sister and others and my friends could probably answer. I'm just wired differently. Sitting on a beach in Mexico, zero interest. Get bored pretty quick. I spent a lot of my single days traveling the world, climbing mountains. I've climbed a bunch of high altitude mountains across the world, and although nobody would sit there and say, "Oh, that's a spot where you sit and have to, be mentally focused and really internalize." But there's times when you're climbing a mountain that you have to sit in your tent for 10 hours during a storm, and all you're doing is thinking, right? And it was a great spot for me to sort of slow down my life. But overall, I do think it's just the way I'm wired. And my wife would love if I wasn't as go, and to be able to, she's continues to learn, like I've joked, I'm like, but there's probably an absolute truth that I have ADD, right? And we've had to learn how that works, right?
Sure.
But I like it. a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not a morning person. Never have been. But when I get
the
going.
bars and restaurants gave that away.
Yeah. I just only started drinking coffee about 3 years ago. I'm thankful that the boys pushed me into this one. But, as the day goes on, I just keeps going and going and going. It's a tough thing for me shutting down at night, shutting down on vacation, shutting down. But and I explain this, my life, my career, my job, it's not 9 to 5. It's 24/7. Yeah. All the time. If I'm on vacation and having a great time and I look down and I'm like, oh, they knew to only call me if something really bad was going on. So I have to answer that phone call saying, I might have to spend the next couple hours trying to figure out working with them on a solution, or this isn't going to be great news. But again, I'm good with that. I think I manage stress pretty well. Like I was telling you before we got started here, an absolute goal of mine for a long time has been to slow down my life. I thought I was doing a good job for a little bit and then realized it's called COVID. And now it's right back to where it has been. And, my priority is the family and the boys. And I have an amazing group of close friends, family here in town. And we spend a lot of time to get to see them. But I wish I'd do a little better job of unplugging on certain nights or certain weekends. Yeah.
10 years
Work in progress.
Yeah. What's it look like a decade from now? What's the goal? Where are you headed?
Hopefully I can say that I did a better job of slowing down. I made the mention that a guy like Steve Brewer or Nick Jensen are dialed in to just the highest level. So much envy in that. But I am who I am. And it's worked for me being a mile wide and maybe not as deep. And through the collaborations and partnerships, it's been great.
Well, don't you think one can argue that you are dialed in through your partnerships and collaborations? Because there's a lot of people who do not possess that skill set.
I want to encourage anybody else to dial that that direction. You talk about investors and, they're diversified. I'm like, oh man, yeah, I can say I am very well diversified. Like with the restaurants, I am not saying we have even come close to touching this. But I have always asked our teams to strive for perfection, try to be the best at what you're doing, try to have that pride. Like if you're going to do it, let's go do it right. And again, I'm not saying we've ever been there. And so that I struggle with that because that starts with me. And if I can't give them the time that they need, eventually they're going to not put it in their effort. If they're like, Todd has missed 3 meetings in a row now because he's going here and there. And so that's a goal. Simplify. People ask all the time, you're looking at new restaurants. And I'm like, I hope not. I really, really hope not. It's a tough business. It's unique and it doesn't stop. And it can be good, but most times it's not. We've been fortunate. The vineyard, I love the vineyard. I'm a wine dork. Love wine. I love the slowness of wine. I love the fact that a wine can taste different. Whether you're sitting drinking on it at the winery or in your backyard, in your patio, in a solo club, what you're eating with it, who you're experiencing it with, there's just so much. I love that. Like a beer, you want that beer to taste the same every time. Wine's fascinating me. And it's a little bit because, just the way I am. We've had this vineyard now for 4 or 5 years. And, there's a very well-known story is, how to make $1 million in the wine business is start with 2, right? And I can attest it's a tough, but I enjoy it. I love it. It's, I don't want to call it a hobby because I want it to work. But, when you ask like what 10 years is like, I would love, as a little bit older father, I want to teach them hard work. I want to teach them doing it right. I want to show them why and how. I don't want to hand down a bunch of things to them, right? And set that table. But like the vineyard, I can't wait someday when they're old enough that, hey guys, we're going to go out there for a week and we're going to work the vineyard. We're going to be out in the farm with the vineyard workers and you're going to be pruning and, harvest and all that stuff. And so, that's my excitement. I've been very fortunate. I'm so blessed, health and safety with our family and just seeing where it goes, especially with Ashley and the boys.
Yeah, no, that's great. What's a brokerage look like? Where's that? How's that evolve over time? I imagine it's one that obviously for decades, I suspect, it took everything. Yeah, that's where it all started.
Going back to it, when you say that story that we're talking about, I can do brokerage anywhere. I can work on any deal. I can sell a farm and wherever. There's license and protocols and whatnot. It's the amount of opportunity is mind-boggling. Learning and it's a very reactionary business. We stress with our team and with the young guys coming in is if you don't set a plan and follow your plan, monitor your plan, and be proactive in how you approach this business, you will become reactive and this business will eat you up.
Yep.
You will get into work every day and say, hey, I have these 5 things to do. And if you are a reactionary broker, at the end of the day, you're not going to have any of those done, right? Because you're going to be responding to this and doing that. And so, time management is so important, right? And I'm not saying I've done a good job of it. It's something that we still work on all the time. Because all we have to do is sell our time and knowledge. And so, but brokerage has been good. I've been slowing it down for a long time. Tyler Dingle has done a fascinating job with our team and growing it and working on some amazing stuff. When Come and Go sold to Maverick, we're still doing some work for Kraus Plus and the Come and Go family. We're still doing some work for Maverick, but the role that we were with Come and Go on the sale leasebacks for the last decade was big and was a lifeline. Something that we dedicated a lot of time and resources to, and worked out well for us. That tried up one day, it wasn't there. And so, but like you look at our team and they knew that was coming down the pipe, and we redirected, and they're having a great year and doing amazing things. But I do enjoy the mentoring, the hopefully providing some direction, whether it's right or wrong, aspect of it. But I hope to slow down. I've been doing a little bit better job of slowing down brokerage. And then this last year, just some past clients, some relationships, handful of assignments that our team wanted, and I had relationships. And so we literally are launching Valley West Mall for sale today. Phone call coming in from Bill Wright. Yeah, we are literally launching that today. A handful of other assignments. And typically, I always tell all the clients, hey, guys, I'm going to help get this thing going, and then our team's going to execute. One of the things I've said is there's not a ton of new ideas anymore. It's all about who can go execute, who can figure out a plan and execute on it without the excuses and just get it done, right? And so I do want to slow down brokerage. Again, I enjoy, there's been so many times over my last 10 years, I'm like, I just need to just call it quits. Just do not do it anymore. But I love being in the office. I love seeing what's going on. I love talking with the young guys about what they're doing here and giving them the direction, again, whether it's right or wrong, in growing that. And so if I can get back to spending 10% or less of my time on that, I enjoy it.
If you're a house flipper, execute the burst strategy or do double closings and are in need of money, Little Guy Loans is your go-to lender here in the Des Moines area. Time is money. Loan approvals in 24 hours. Closings in 5 days. Little Guy Loans was founded by Neil Timmins, an investor just like you. Since he has been in over 10,000 homes in Des Moines, there's never an appraisal. Houses, multifamily, and commercial property loans up to $1 million. Check out www.littleguyloans.com.
How's that business evolved since?
I've said this for a long time. When I came into the business, gosh, I'm going to be aging myself and people are going to laugh and giggle. I didn't have a cell phone for a year. I didn't have a computer in my office for 2 years. When we needed information from the assessor's page or the assessor, we had to get in our car, drive down to the Polk County assessor, wait in line, and then ask, hey, I have this legal description or this address. All right, we'll be back. That'll be $1.50 because I had to print out these 6 pages of your assessor. And all right, let's figure all this stuff out. It used to be back when I even got into the business that all these guys had all these relationships and they knew everything. If you were trying to do real estate, if you weren't in the game, it was hard for you to understand it. Now, going back, even 5 years of following that after I got in the business, the internet was there. Now it's deciphering what's right or wrong. Now there's an overload of information. What is actually a good information? What's relevant? And so the role of a good commercial broker has changed a little bit from just having all the information to advising and doing the correct. And, again, we take the same approach I talked a little bit earlier, like with Johnny's on brokerages. We're not going to tell people that we can get them X dollars when we don't feel confident. We lose a lot of business because we're pragmatic. I tell them sometimes there's a buyer out there that doesn't know what they're doing. That's not our problem. We're not representing them when we're representing our client, but going about it just the right way, being here and doing this for a long term. And it's paid off in folds, but it's really more of that advisory role. It's more of that sifting through the vast amounts of information that are available to anybody. And that comes with experience and deals, the deals that didn't happen. Right. Why didn't they happen? All right, this. You're not going to think about that until you're working on a deal saying, oh, shoot, right, I need to make sure I maneuver here because otherwise I'm going to find myself in the same position. But there was a time like, I wonder if brokerage is going to be relevant, but 100%. A great broker advising groups. A lot of people like, 6%. I'm like, oh my gosh, if you could buy an insurance policy for only 6%, yeah.
That came up one day, and we were joking about that with a mutual friend, and he laughed and he said, "Yeah, well, I get a third as an attorney."
It's fun, like sometimes you get people like, oh, I worked with a business broker and they were charging me 10, 15%. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. But the markets are the markets.
At the end of the day, it's about the value the one delivers.
Yeah. And going back to like that specialty and being an expert, like we're moving that direction, and you're going to see more of that. Like what I did in brokerage isn't the future. If someone calls me, I can answer most questions about anything commercial real estate related. But the people that are doing amazing work are those groups that work in this 4-block radius and only represent one side, and they know everything. Yeah. There's nothing getting by them, right? And so that will be something you continue to see. And it's, they use the term managed brokerage. It's CB will be pushing that in this market. JLL has been doing it for a little bit, where it's like, hey, yeah, we don't want you doing retail and office, which is good. I think it's good.
Well, the city continues to grow, and at a certain point, ice-wise, it just makes sense.
100%. Yeah. And then that's what, we always told people, is like, I only did this in our marketplace. There's going to be some lean years. Yeah. Some of this stuff, ebbs and flows. And so we have to be a little bit, but that's changing. Our market's so dynamic and growing.
You ready for the final 3 questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you had one piece of advice for your 20-year-old self, what would it be?
Shoot. Those are one of those questions you should have told me beforehand. Enjoy the ride. I'd probably have a temper. I get fired up quick. I have been so blessed. I have had an amazing run. I don't think it's done, but I've loved it. We all know it. Grass is always greener on the other side of the fence, right? I look back and just say, don't let, what is it? The saying, what is it? I forget, where you're looking at others. Don't let that steal your joy, right? When you're comparing yourself to others. Like, again, going back when my buddies were working for Principal 2 years out of the business, I was making no money. I was living on credit cards. Yeah. And they were, flying on planes and doing these. I was jealous. I'm like, I don't, so just made me enjoy it a little bit.
2 books that changed your life.
I am not a reader of what I'd call self-help books at all.
Any book.
Count of Monte Cristo. I always loved that book.
What did you learn from that?
The long game. You don't want to have that where your entire life was about revenge or that one single thing. Like that balance. I put everything in one thing, and that was vengeance, right? So, again, I look at balance and saying, hey, having fun, spend your time. We only have so much time here, right? And enjoy it. I've been given so many blessings and surrounded. I hope I'm doing a good job of enjoying it, but there's days I know I'm not. Right? Yeah. Yeah, I can't think of another book, but it's stuff like that. Mountain climbing. When I first read a book about mountain climbing, then I went, and it was a huge part of my life for a number of years. And it was amazing. It was such a wonderful thing for me.
If you were cast away on an island for a year, you could only get 3 pieces of data about your business each and every month. What 3 things must you know every month to know how your business is doing?
Well, this could be a long
question. Bring it on. I know we got multiple verticals.
Business. I'm going to say, I'm going to say like the real estate, just a portfolio, because that's where I spend my time, and that's the future. But typically with real estate, one of the beauties of it is you have 3 ways of making money, right? And that's the absolute beauty. You have appreciation, you have income, and you have depreciation, right? And so your cash flows, farmland. Like, if I buy one of these farms, I know I'm going to maybe pay in every year, right? But the appreciation is where I'm going to make my money. And it's a long play, right? There's no depreciation on it, right? But, if there's others like, hey, I'm going to put this money in, it's going to cash flow, and wow, this accelerated depreciation, we can accelerate that, and I can get even more money. So rather than putting 30% down, I'm not leveraged heavily, but I got some of that money back after not paying taxes, right? Because it's not what you make, it's what you end up with. And so we do a lot, even like in the restaurants. I have a 30,000 foot view down, and I am usually looking at our P&Ls and saying, hey, and then I'm comparing them to history, not just last year, not just last month, hey, weighted averages and some of that. So I live on P&Ls and I enjoy them. I mean, it's like, I'm not like, I couldn't imagine being an accountant or an attorney who had to pay attention and work on details. I would have failed long ago at that. I love working through a P&L and pulling out questions and this and this and that. We try, again, in everything we do, we try not to take a 1-day look. We try not to take a 1-month look. Even, like, we're in this for the long haul. We're are we making the right decisions? I think we all hear and I repeat this to our guys, indecision or a non-decision is a lot of times worse than the wrong decision.
Correct.
Move forward. Well, hey, there's one thing, I know we're probably wrapping up here, but a huge part of my life and something I love talking about is going back, and it's always been fascinating people. I'm not good at watching TV, and I was single for, too many years. And so I was always out and about. Right. And then I got involved with, even going back in high school, with the Special Olympics. And then in college, I was involved with a handful of them. But volunteering and nonprofit work in Des Moines has been an absolutely instrumental part of my life. And we go back to that balance. I've mentored 20 plus kids down at Orchard Place over the course of time. And, this is a spot where I drive down once a week, go pick up, a young man down there. We'd go have lunch. But you didn't have anybody else coming. Right. Sometimes we would talk about mistakes of choices they made that week or that day. Sometimes we would just go sit and eat some pizza or go bowling or take them to a Cubs game or, a million other things. I've been a big brother to 4 young littles, of which 2 of them I still have a relationship with. My first little, he's an attorney over in Omaha and married, and it turned out to be just an amazing young man. And he had some struggles, but he turned it all around, and it's just, that's everything, right? I've been a mentor through those things. I've been heavily involved with Make-A-Wish, both as a wish granter and as well as I ran the front gate of Jolly Holiday Lights when it was down at our Waterworks Park for years. But, I've probably granted over 100 wishes over the years. If you think you have a problem, you go pick up your kid down at Orchard Place, you go visit with the child or the family of a sick child, you don't have problems. You have small issues, right? And so, again, going back to that balance, I've been heavily involved with United Way, sat on their board, been involved with the campaign for years, joined Community Foundation board here recently, doing amazing work. Both those organizations. I love being from Iowa. I love traveling and telling people I'm from Iowa, and they're saying, well, that's too bad. And I'm like, oh, all right, game on. And one of the great stats I love about saying why I love Iowa, and the answer is people, right? And it is. But, we give more per capita than any other city in the nation through United. We give more to United Way than Miami. Think of that. Think of all the money and yahoos that they cannot beat us, right? And then just the per capita aspect. But our United Way and Community Foundation are both doing amazing work, and they are working collaborative. Mary Sellers and Chrissy Nowes, they're working together. They meet on a regular basis. In some other markets, they are competitors because they, have a different, maybe agenda. I don't know. But I love that aspect of my life. Again, I was on the board at Orchard Place as well, Big Brothers Big Sisters, Make-A-Wish, all those organizations that have given me more than what I've been able to. I can give them some time and some dollars and whatnot, but that life balance and that perspective and that understanding of what matters. So that's another thing I'd throw up there pretty high as to why am I here today, right? Yeah. And then that's just a big key aspect of it.
It's incredible that you mentioned you often get more out of it than you give. It shapes you and oftentimes defines you as a person, gives some deeper perspective to what it is you're going through.
100%.
Why we're here.
Yep. Again, there'd be times where I was having a bad day or a deal blew up, and I'm going to pick up one of the kids down and know that, some of the stuff that, life's not fair, and there's a lot of things that aren't right. And, but it's all perspective and it's all understanding and being thankful and appreciative of what we are provided, which a lot of us, we're so blessed.
Yeah. Todd, this has been a fantastic conversation. I appreciate you taking the time to come in here.
Sorry, it's taking me a little time to get back to you on that one.
Fantastic. I'm excited when it happened. Say for people that want to find you, follow you, connect with you, where can they go? What should they do?
Oh yeah. I'm not very good at the social media stuff and whatnot, but we'll get that. Our team, I should probably even know our brokerage team's handles and some of that stuff, but we'll get that to you. I'm sure you will.
We'll do this. It'll be below in the show notes. We'll get it.
Yeah.
We don't need to rattle it off verbally.
Yeah. I always say that my email and my phone number are not hard to find out on the, if someone needs to get a hold of me, they're typically pretty easy to get hold of.
Any of my brokers is about these idiots personified in the industry, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So
I appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It was fun coming in, and hopefully I wasn't slapping myself on the back too much there.
Terrific conversation.
All right.
That was great.
Thanks for listening. If you're enjoying the show, may I ask a favor of you? Naturally, subscribe so you never miss an episode. But would you rate and leave an honest written review on Apple Podcasts? It does a lot for us here at the show, and I appreciate reading your thoughts. Great guests make for a great show. If you know of another Iowan who would be a great guest, or you yourself have interest in being a guest, well, get on our radar. Visit Investing in Iowa to fill out an application or recommend a guest. And if you want to connect with me one-on-one, go to LegacyImpactInvestors.com. Click on the Invest With Us button in the top right corner, and there you can pick a time for the two of us to get on the calendar and connect. Until next time, keep investing in Iowa.